So let's get started. I'm delighted to introduce our two stars this afternoon. Richard Brim, who is actually a D&AD trustee, and his day job is Chief Creative Officer at multi-award-winning Adam and Eve DDB. And Richard will be talking on behalf of Mind. And let me also welcome Gracie Page. Gracie is VML Y&R's Director of Emerging Technology. She has over a decade's experience working in digital experience, and Gracie will be exploring and extolling the role of the machine. Gracie, you've kindly agreed to get us started, so over to you.
I have. Thank you very much, Tim, and hello to everyone. I'm slightly disappointed that I wasn't allowed to vote in the poll, so I don't know what that says, but moving swiftly onwards. So I work with my colleagues in experience design, strategic planning, with creative teams as well, to understand what is going on in the consumer technology landscapes, what opportunities are available to us to reach people, but way more importantly than reaching people is how might we use this consumer technology to deliver value into people's lives. And this value delivery is the same goal as my creative peers, as I suspect Richard's goal, or anyone else really in the industry who wants to impact consumers' day-to-day lives, because we're here to make life better through the medium of brands and products and services and experiences. So I focus on building great connections between brands and consumers, specifically using technology to do so. So I wanted to take a moment just to open here to really clarify what we mean when we say technology or tech, because it's really easy for vastly different technologies and platforms and systems to just get lumped together under this umbrella term. And I think the stuff that really feels like and gets spoken about as a sort of creativity killer is by and large the sort of automation technology. It's the borderline, creepy, cookie-fueled programmatic that sort of follows you around the web and across your devices and serves you the same thing over and over again, even when it's not appropriate to do so. Personal anecdote from my life is that my partner and I just got engaged, and in my own time, obviously, I'm looking at wedding dresses, but that does not mean that I want them to show up as display ads when he grabs my iPad for something that can be incredibly frustrating. So there's this sort of tracker-based MarTech technology stack that's also going to be evolving enormously in the next 5 years in light of how the data privacy conversation is evolving. But I want to leave that to one side for a moment. Then there's consumer technology. These are the devices, the systems, and the platforms. My mind immediately goes to social media, but not only that. And these technologies help people do stuff in their day-to-day lives. So this is augmented reality, letting me try on different lipstick shades and ask my best mate which one doesn't look awful. It's Alexa telling me what to do, what to put on that red wine that I just spilled all over my sofa last night, true story, while I'm running around like a headless chicken. So this is the technology that lives very visibly in people's day-to-day lives. It's thought of most commonly as platforms to market on, but as they become saturated with push marketing, consumers are obviously, as we all know, looking for more value than ever before from brands and experiences. And technology can provide a way to deliver that value in a very unique way. So this is really the stuff that I'm interested in. Lastly, to touch on it, we also have deep tech, so-called deep tech. So think artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms, blockchain, quantum computing, things like that. These are really sort of paradigm changing technologies that are redefining the way that electronic systems work on a way more fundamental level. And as a result of that, they're redefining the way that the world works. And that's absolutely not what we're talking about in this context either. So let's just put that to one side. So what about this idea of mind or machine triumphing? I kind of fundamentally disagree with the premise, I'm afraid. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. Technology is a tool. So one of my favorite quotes is from the wonderful Pablo Picasso. And he said, "Computers are useless. They can only give you answers." For me, this totally encapsulates the mind-machine paradigm. By that, he didn't mean that he'd rather crunch really complex maths problems in his own head than pick a calculator up, obviously, who wants to do that. He meant that computers don't ask questions, at least not yet. We're a very long way off having sentient artificial intelligence that's going to be able to do that fundamentally human preoccupation. And that is all of our jobs, is asking questions, understanding humans, finding solutions to their pains, creating magic to solve these pain points that they have in their day-to-day lives. These are all things that only humans can do. And technology is here to help us spend less time doing the other stuff, and as a delivery pipe for that creativity. So that's the automation piece that allows us to focus more of our time on creativity, and then a delivery mechanic for our creativity. So I'll close with an anecdote that basically encapsulates exactly that. So my favorite example of technology as a tool comes from the world of animated movies. You know, Steve Jobs and Ed Catmull and John Lasseter founded Pixar. Now, John Lasseter had actually been recently fired from Disney Animation Studios for promotion of computer animation and computer-generated graphics at the time. And of course, today, we would never dream of questioning the immense creativity that can be unleashed into the world through CGI, and whether CGI has a place in animation and movie making, that is just a given. But at the time, traditional animators at Disney, who were still hand drawing movies frame by frame, saw computers as a threat to their creativity, when in reality, whether it is a pencil or a computer, these things are just tools. It's the pipe that delivers the animator's creativity. Her ideas, her methodologies, her eye, those are her creativity, not the lead in her pencil, not the mouse to the computer. So today's consumer technologies that we can use to reach people are nothing more than tools in our creative arsenal. As is often the case, the virtue is therefore in the balance. It's not mind or machine, it's both.
Gracie, thank you very much. Very compelling, and let's hope we can keep some opposition going here for a little while. Richard, I'm going to hand straight over to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Brim. I'm Chief Creative Officer at Adam and Eve DDB, and I'm responsible for everything that goes out across the board for our clients creatively. And because this is a debate, I completely disagree with what Gracie is saying. Absolute rubbish. I actually don't. I actually agree. But there is something for me that when we're in the business of we're in a very noisy world. We're in a very homogenized world where people think, if you look at social media, people think they're being incredibly creative when they're just looking a little bit like everyone else. And I think in that world we have to have ideas, and we have to have things for our clients that make them stand out, that makes them stand out, but also appeal to humanity and make humans want to change things or do things. And I'm a very firm believer in this, and I've spoken about it a couple of times in this premise of the wonder of what the fuck. And what I mean by that is, especially back in Paddington, where we're based in the office, I'm a firm believer of an idea can come from anywhere. I love the fact ideas can come from everywhere. You walk into our building, and whatever department you work in, you are essentially a creative. But there's this whole thing in agencies where it's like, no idea is a bad idea. Don't be afraid of sounding stupid. And people are afraid of sounding stupid, and people don't necessarily always say what's on their mind. But I truly believe that the ideas that just happen about what if we did this, or what if we did that, or somebody that normally wouldn't say something just piping up and then you riffing off it, is where ideas, the best ideas come from, and where the more sort of surprising ideas, that's where the more surprising ideas come from. And I truly believe that, as Gracie says, until computers can think, I just think the mind will always go to the mind at its most creative challenges everything that's the norm. And I feel tech creates the norm at its worst. At its best, it enables creativity to challenge the norm. So I'm kind of sitting on the fence like Gracie is, but I do massively lean towards mind, because as I said, the world is beginning. However, people think they're incredibly unique, but when you look at it, the world is very, very, very the same. and through creativity and through thinking and through looking at things differently and through questioning and through constantly trying to find new interesting ways and embracing the wonder of what the fuck and that sort of way of thinking. And that is I think the only way we will progress into new ideas and new ways of thinking. And I think rejecting technology in a world that's pushing technology is an interesting space to be in. I think also the time that we've had off now, technology has massively helped us, but also I think personally for me, I'm missing the human collision, and I think that is where the best ideas happen, when humans collide with other humans, and you don't know where that's going to go. And by technology, you kind of know where it's going to go. If you ask Alexa how to clean up a wine stain, she's going to tell you how to clean up a wine stain, and that's what you're going to get back. You're not going to get anything more. So I agree with Gracie, but I do think if we had to choose one, I think mine should most definitely win over machine, because it's be a lot more of an interesting place to live.
Richard, thank you very much. As I say, I hope we can keep the opposition going for a little while longer. I suspect we're going to come to a consensus quite soon. I just want to, Gracie, you very cleverly parked some examples of technology to one side, but I just want to ask you both, and this is a sort of old fart question, and I apologize to our audience for this.
No such thing.
Well, try
me.
There is a view, and it probably is a view held by an older generation of advertising and design people, that creativity has suffered over the last sort of 10, 15 years, as some of the things that you talked about have been brought to bear on our industry, maybe more specifically the advertising industry than the design industry. There is a view, and D&AD is not a bad place to observe this from, I have to say, that the great ideas of yesterday are not as prevalent and don't come along as often as they used to. And some people blame that on technology. Are we just living in a more complex world, or is there some truth in that, Gracie, do you think?
It's probably a bit of both, Tim. I think, I do love to sit on the fence. At the end of the day, we're living in a more saturated world, and the expectation on people who do our kind of work is that we will be able to churn out groundbreaking ideas at scale. Because clients want an always-on social strategy. They want, their campaigns to be just saturating on every single platform all of the time. And when you are working at that kind of velocity, I do think that the space to be able to create suffers absolutely as a result of that. And technology has a part to play in that, in the sense that technology has been an accelerant on society and the way that we communicate, and therefore the way that brands want to communicate with the general public. So it is definitely not an innocent player in the puzzle, but I don't think we could consciously say it's the driving force behind that. Richard's just jumping in.
No,
I think you very cleverly, to keep this, I think you very cleverly parked the bit that actually describes the title, which is machine. I think the programmatic, I think there's consumer technology, which is great, and things that help you and help creativity, but there is a massive swathe, and I've seen it. I've been in presentations where you win pitches on creating an ad sort of delivery service that is the exact ad delivery service that makes everybody hate advertising. So I think, and we were talking about yesterday the example of like I wear black shoes, and one day I may look at, I may look at a pair of red shoes, and then all of a sudden across everything I become red shoes guy, and I'm fed things about red shoes, and they know, and it's the big brother listening. The amount of times you are there and people going, I mentioned something and my phone was next to me, and the next thing you know, I'm being served ads left, right, and center. And whilst I know there's a truth to it, and I know there's a sort of science fiction myth about it, it is. I mean, it's amazing when you're in these meetings and clients go, "Oh my God!" So when somebody's in the sunshine, they can be served something about sunshine, and like it's the Holy Grail, and that has replaced proper creative thinking, where people think programmatic and being served things at times and using people's data is groundbreaking and the thing that cuts through. When actually, when you're talking as a human being to a human being, it's the bit that scares them rigid.
I think
Big Brother's listening.
Yeah, and I'm going to let Gracie come back in a second. I mean, clearly, if the standard of creativity has gone down in the age of the internet, there are many other factors. You mentioned data and the application of data in real time. The budgets have gone down. Development times have speeded up exponentially, and so a lot of factors have changed, which aren't necessarily to do with technology. So, but Gracie, do you want to come back on that? What Richard was saying there?
Absolutely. I mean, it'll come as no surprise to you that I totally agree. And I'm sorry about your red shoe situation. I think what the really interesting question here is actually, what is the driving force behind these systems being built and these systems winning in the pitch room? Because at the end of the day, right, marketers are looking for incremental 2% growth on their bottom line, and any way that can give them that in an assured way is very attractive to them. And that itself is a wider issue that goes way beyond the creative industries. All the data would suggest that it does. Yeah. There's a lot of evidence to say that it does. But define what works. We'll define what works, because if it works on driving 2% incremental growth, absolutely. If it works on being able to retain a customer for 5 to 10 years, grow an emotional relationship with them for a longer lifetime customer value, probably not, because next time I want to buy some blue shoes, I'm going to get really irritated that they just don't seem to understand me and block them. So we have to sort of consider what growth and worth.
That's a really good point, though, Gracie. There's nowness, and then there's building a brand, and what creativity has always done at its best, I think, has delivered on nowness, but also whilst creating a brand. And I think as everything speeded up, nowness has taken over from creating a legacy, a longevity, and that may be where and nowness is tech, but for me, utopia is those two marrying, but we can only do what our clients' needs are in that very moment.
Ideally, a little bit of both.
Let's segue to clients here, because agencies work for clients, and I think are very much do things at their behest. Obviously, good agencies give clients what the agency thinks they need, but not so good agencies give them what they're told. They do what they're told to do quite often, and I think there is a certain amount of bullying that goes on. I mean, it does seem to me that client thinking has become more short-term, more data-driven, and increasingly investment less in brand building and more in kind of short-term sales gains, which is what you were sort of touching on there, Gracie. Do you think there's some truth in that? Is it? Can we blame clients? It's always comforting to do that, obviously. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, yes. But again, coming back to what I just said, at the end of the day, everyone's got a pressure on them from somewhere. And we have to look at wider societal trends to try and understand, well, why is this need to solve the immediate term quite so pressing to stakeholders? And that's obviously a way bigger conversation. But the thing that I want to pick on what you just said, Tim, was this phrase data driven, because we're about to go through a revolution in this space. Consumers are picking up more and more consciousness around the value of their personal data. They want more ownership of it. You've got announcements coming out all of the time from companies such as Apple, who had their Worldwide Developer Conference just a couple of weeks ago, and who announced with the release of their latest operating system that will hit our phones and iPads in September, that they're now going to request every single developer that has an app on the App Store basically self-reports a full transparency report on how and why and when they use people's personal data. So this wave is coming. You know, it started in the EU with GDPR. There's some initiatives stateside as well, although they have no federal law to sort of counter GDPR in Europe at the moment. But really, brands need to start thinking now about how they can pivot away from this sort of miasma of data platforms that uses first, second, and third party data, and start thinking about how do I create such an emotional connection with my customer that they opt in to give me this information. And that's really the holy grail. And I'll shut up now.
No, I just want to. We've got
to do that. You need creativity.
Absolutely.
You need to inspire again. You do. And I think it's really interesting to answer the question about what clients are thinking. I think I was seeing a definite shift away from everybody's talking we need to do it. And then it's very strange. People are at different points of the journey, and we're seeing a lot more come back and just want pure, simple brand building thinking, but that incorporates everything. So it's not. It's like the seagulls in Finding Nemo a little bit. It's like they're all over here, and then all of a sudden they're all over here. But then I think people are saying, "Oh, it's actually not working for me," or things are happening. So it's a bit more of a balanced point of view. So it's almost reflective in the nature of this conversation, in that we're saying both. And maybe 2 years ago, it would have been a bit more. It would have been a bit more definite. Maybe, I don't know.
Let me. We've got some great questions coming through, by the way. So I want to turn to that shortly. But I just want to ask you both one more question with a sort of relatively brief answers. What you often hear people say is the delivery mechanisms have changed, but the rules about customer engagement remain the same. The basic principles remain the same. Is that true, or is it true that technology has actually changed the rules? Gracie, is that a coherent question? Do you see what I mean?
It's a coherent question, and I think fundamentally the rules have not changed. I think that what technology has done is it's lowered barriers. So it makes it easier to apply the rules that are rooted in human psychology.
That's a great answer.
The fundamentals.
Richard, what do you think?
I don't think the rules have changed. I think that it's very basic. The rules are exactly the same. I think what has happened is people sometimes think technology is the rules and start with technology and say that it has to be this, as opposed to we have to engage. I think, and that which muddies the rules. But I don't think
that's just people getting it wrong, right? That's yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Great.
It's very easy to start with tech.
Yeah, that's a mistake. Let me put some of these questions to you. So we have one from Victoria Foster, which is aimed at Gracie, but actually it's for both of you. So what tech are you most excited about that's kind of on or around the horizon at the moment? What sort of excited you right now?
What's exciting me right now is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, augmented reality, because surprise, surprise, it augments the physical world. And I'm not a fan of virtual reality at all. I think a reality replacer is beyond uninteresting to me. The idea of being able to use digital content to make the world more navigable for many different types of people is an absolute blessing for people who want to apply their creativity to technology. So I'd say AR.
Thanks. Richard, please say large format plate photography.
Press.
Okay.
It's a platform. It's a platform. I mean, I completely agree with AR, and I don't want to, for all the reasons that Gracie said. I think there's some phenomenal things happening there. But the platform, and this is not me trying to sound trendy. It's not me, the platform for me that I think is changing the way we see things and we consume things is TikTok. And during this period, we've seen the world go to a very serious place, and through the last couple of years, we've seen the world go to a place where we're driving purpose, and it can be a little bit joyless. And what's happened is TikTok's come in the middle with this whole dollop of nonsense and stupidity and just pure joy. And that for me is inspiring people to consume joyous content, to be joyous, to create joyous things. And I think coming out of this period that we're in, that is going to be so important, because if you look at Hollywood after the war, comedy was on the rise. If you look after the Great Depression, great songwriting and entertainment was on the rise. And what TikTok's doing is it's mainlining it to people's things. And I just love the just sheer stupidity and nonsense is becoming consumed greatly. And I like that. I think we've been far too serious for far too long.
Just to build on that, I'm so sorry, Tim.
Yeah, go. Yeah.
I just want to sort of corroborate what Richard's amazing points and draw people's attention to the fact that about sort of 4 or 5 years ago, we had an app called Vine that came out, which was essentially by and large the exact same type of content format, right? It was micro video content, and it totally tanked. Twitter bought it for too much money, and it went absolutely nowhere because it wasn't the right time in pop culture. And to Richard's point, right now is exactly when we need this type of content. So totally agree. Very
good. A question here from Signe Louise Haman, which kind of, cuts to the chase in a big way. Could it be possible that technology will provide groundbreaks to, for instance, the climate crisis? So is it mind or machine that is most likely to provide us with solutions to climate change?
Oh my word. Well, I'm not a climate change expert, but I'm going to go that usually scientific breakthroughs, and I say this as an ex-genetic engineer, so I've got a tiny little bit of credibility, hopefully, in this space. All the best scientific breakthroughs and inventions usually come from multidisciplinary teams. There's a reason that the teams that have been assembled in the Francis Crick Institute in London, which is by and large the scientific community, have accepted that that's where they're going to cure cancer. They have physicists, they have environmental scientists, they have psychologists, they have biologists. Yeah. When you mash those minds together from vastly different fields, historians, whatever that might be, that's where the gold lies. And I think that sort of speaks to Richard's opening remarks.
Yes, completely. I imagine Richard would agree with that. So for both of you, this from Martin Reed, how can agencies get best informed about current trends and the ever-changing landscape of consumer tech? How does Adam and Eve stay connected with all that, Richard? Is it conscious or just sort of subliminal?
I think you have to, again, it's a bit of both. I think you have to be educated. I think you have to have some incredible minds like Gracie that they're saying you can do it like this, you can do it like that. But I think it's also being open and being out there and reading and knowing and living. You've got to read and you've got to know and you've got to be into it as well. And I think one of the things I find is half my creative department are and half my creative department aren't, and people are scared by it. The human condition is to be scared by change, and so some people are scared by it, and some people embrace it. And I, for one, embrace that sort of stuff, and embrace change, and I'm terrified by change to my life, but I like to feed off stuff, and. There's no one way of doing it. You've just got to surround yourselves with people that talk and have very interesting chats with people. And that collision thing, this is not good for it. These windows are not good for it.
Absolutely.
You've got to be there just having a coffee and walking past somebody and that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
Gracie,
absolutely.
Probably.
Yeah, yes, just to build on what Richard said. Yeah, and that's definitely been my experience as well. I work with people who are super hardcore into it, like myself, and other people who just want to get the download from somewhere else, and that's totally fine. That's why it's good to have evangelists, around you, if that's not you. But the only other thing that I can add to the shopping list really is reach out to the platforms. Have relationships with them. They all have, if you're in an agency, they all have agency partnership teams. They are literally there. That is their job, is to come in and tell you what's going on and enthuse you and your colleagues with the insights and knowledge that you need to start thinking of your own, not thinking of your own ideas based in technology, because that's the wrong way around, but knowing what tools are in your arsenal, so that when you have a creative idea and you think, how could I plug that into X, Y, or Z moment in the consumer's life, you actually know what tools are at your disposal. So reach out to the platforms.
We've just done that with Instagram, actually, for the New Blood Awards last night. So this is a question from Callum Ritchie, which I think is important. I'm going to paraphrase it slightly. So back in the day when marketing was being invented, P&G basically wrote the rules for television advertising, and it was crushing for creativity because they tried to write a formula for it. You're both too young to remember that. I observe a similar thing happening here, and the question is: do you think third-party companies like Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram controlling the way you view and consume content is good for creativity or bad for it? Richard, what do you think? You see my P&G comparison. P&G.
Yeah. I think anything that controls anything is bad for creativity, and I think, but it gives you something to fight against, and it gives you something to prove wrong. I think the Facebook is all homogenized. You will fit into this pipeline, and you will go to our rules. And I think as a creative, you're like no, and actually having something to fight against is good. So let a lot of people do that, and actually we'll fight against that. So if I'm sort of sitting on the fence on this one, because I actually quite like rules because it gives you something to butt up against. But at the same time, maybe a world where everybody's just doing loads of different things would just be really sort of, you learn, but because we're on these platforms every day, you learn a behavior of have messages delivered to you, and if you challenge that, then that challenge is slightly more maybe provoking or whatever, but it has its benefits for certain clients that just want to fit into that pipeline, and then for the more punky clients, and the more it gives you something to fight against. Yeah,
good. Yeah, Gracie, any thought on that? Do you think it's constraining or liberating, or neither?
It's constraining, obviously, to Richard's point. There are formats to fit into. That's how that's the pipe that you have through which to deliver your ideas. But constraints have always fueled innovation, right? Elon Musk wouldn't have developed Tesla and the batteries that he's developed if we didn't have the fossil fuel constraints that we're working to as the human race. And I think, just as rules are there to be broken, platforms are also there to be broken. I mean, yeah, Twitter literally has, Twitter have a department called the Twitter Next Lab, who self-describe as the team that will help you break the Twitter platform for your client. Yeah. So, and all the amazing things that sort of tend to rise to the top in those mediums are the formats and the ideas that have done something totally mind-blowing, like the Toyota idea from a few years ago. I can't remember who it was from, but you hit one of the buttons on the keyboard and it changed your view as to what film you were in, things like that. I mean, that wasn't a normal ad format.
Yeah,
that's so very wise.
And it's interesting with those. What I've found with work that we've done along those lines is the no is where the best work happens. Yeah. It's when somebody goes back, we did something for FIFA last year where we wanted to put a move in the game, and they were just like, the only thing you can't touch is the game. Don't fuck with the game, because that's the only thing you can't touch. And we went back, and our idea was that we want to put a move in the game that can only be unlocked when people do it in the real world.
This is the El Tornado.
Yeah, and they were like, no, and then you're like, go on, like, no, oh, okay, and then and then all you do is you get conversations with the developers, and they're like, okay, that could be cool, and it's an easy entry point, and then so no's, I find, I don't mind the pipes because it gives you something to fight against.
Yep, a very wise colleague of mine, Adrian Holmes, once said, you can't play tennis without lines. I mean, he was talking about the worst thing you can get. Is an open.
That's great. I'm so going to steal that. Thank you, Adrian.
I've used it throughout my career. Yeah. Thank you, Adrian, if you're watching, which you won't be. I'm going to go for one more question here. And this is a very practical thing. So, and I think it's a great question. I'm building my portfolio. The traditional book of posters looks dated. What does the perfect book look like now? What would you look for, Richard? And then we'll come to Gracie.
It's a really strange thing for me, for my hiring policy and how I hire. because I look at work and I don't care if it's a poster or I saw a book yesterday, and I actually won a pencil last night, and it was just some films and just a one-page idea, and just I'm buying thinking, but more than anything, I'm buying souls, and without getting a bit sort of about it, but you are buying energy and you're buying souls of people, and if all I want to see is, well, that's interesting, that's made me think. That I may not agree with your execution of it, I may not agree with how you've brought it to life, but the actual core being of it is great, and that's what I look for in portfolios, and your energy and how you turn up and the conversations we have. Great,
Gracie. What's your advice to someone putting their book together?
I don't, similarly to Richard, don't get too hung up on the finished product. I'm more interested in looking at the working. Just as venture capitalists, when they're doing due diligence on a startup, they look at the working, even if the end product actually is probably going to change loads and loads and loads as it goes to market. It's about, well, can this team, be flexible enough and creative enough to go with the flow and continually be smart and come up with new ideas. So I think that's really interesting to show a little bit of, how you've gotten to where you got to, whether that's obviously in the book or in an interview. And then I like seeing lots of different things from different places because it shows curiosity. Yeah. So I'd get a few QR codes in there, some just left field stuff, and if it doesn't work in a printed format, that's fine. Find a way to link it to the digital world. There are plenty of options for you out there.
That's great. We're going to run out of time, sadly, because we could go on a lot longer. So I'm talking to Nicola behind the scenes here. We should be prepared to rerun the poll in a minute to see if people have changed their minds at all. Do you want to make one last compelling argument in favour of what you're speaking for? Just briefly to sort of sum it all up in a, or you may not want to, of course, but a final word from both of you, perhaps. That's what I'm saying.
You want to go, Richard? Oh, okay. I'll go. Okay, I'm not going to restate the argument because I feel like the last 30 minutes have been us basically converging around the beauty of mind and machine melding. What I will use this closing remark to say is there are so many free tools out there from platforms, from technology providers, whether that's, Spark AR Studio from Facebook and Instagram, Bot Society, which is a web-based free chatbot design tool. Microsoft Azure have some incredible algorithms that allow you to play with painting with AI. There are loads of things out there that you can use as creative resources to explore your creativity in the digital space. So get Googling. I can't wait to see what you make.
Richard, last thought?
And I'm going to use this 1000% to bring my argument home. So this is a mind versus machine, and machines are tools. The mind, I would categorically, is everything. Without mind, the machines are nothing.
Great. That's Gracie. I think Richard in it slightly ungentle.
Under the bus. I've been thrown under the bus.
Took advantage of your politeness there, I feel.
Oh wow, that'll teach me.
Can we get the poll up, and before we end the session, we'll just ask people to vote again. So it should be appearing on a screen near you in a minute. There we are. So if you wouldn't all mind re-voting, and then we'll declare a winner and a loser. I think I know where.
Really, Tim? Really?
Oh, well,
no. I would declare Gracie the winner.
Well, I think we have to.
I've done a terrible job. I've lost.
Gracie's eloquence has changed some minds there. So congratulations.
God love all of you.
You're pretty overwhelmingly in favour of mine. So that is great. I would like to say huge thank you to both of you, to Gracie and Richard. And thanks to the audience for all your questions and for coming along today.